Welcome everybody, it's Cliff, and this is Life with MS. Today I have a really cool study I think you're going to want to see. We all know that vitamin D is awesome for MS, or at least we should know that, and if we don't, now you do. But a new study came out that has some very interesting findings. Let's get into it. What?
Okay, quick backstory. In 2018, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis after looking for a diagnosis for 10 years, and I was living in San Diego just prior to that, and for years, my symptoms kept getting worse, but they were very hard to track down. They were throwing me all over the place from different specialists to different specialists. Now I'm starting to wonder that if all my time spent outside under the sun in San Diego covered up a lot of my MS by pumping me full of vitamin D3. It's possible.
Well, there was a study that was done. It started in 2013, and it ended in 2023. The study involved giving participants a healthy dose of vitamin D3 to see what would happen over the course of 22 months. As with all studies, they're very specific with who they studied, and I'm going to go through that right now. And what I love about science is it doesn't leave a lot of room for opinion. It's all based in qualification and quantification, which leads to nice fat data sets that allows us to really interpret the results, and that's what this study did. So to simplify things, I'm going to step outside the scientific mindset and into the storytelling mindset to make this much easier to understand for the time we have allotted here. And I'm going to break it down to the who, what, when, where, and why. And if you want to read more about the study, I will link it below. So the who, patients aged 18 to 55 years of age with clinically isolated syndrome, a type of MS. If you don't know what CIS is, I'm going to link that below as well, and you can read the nitty-gritty. But typically, it's a very early onset detection of MS. The patient population had a CIS duration of less than 90 days. They had MRI results with specific criteria for MS, and they had a presence of, and I'm going to try to say this, it's hard. Oligoclonal bands. I'm going to spell it right here because I can't say it this morning. You know, the people that come up with these names are also the ones that name the drugs like Ocrevus and Tysabri and Kesimpta. And it's like, we have enough problems with just pronouncing our names. Do we really need to do this with the drugs too, and the studies and the proteins? They do have their purpose. What did the study look at? The study evaluated the efficacy of high-dose vitamin D3 as a monotherapy in reducing disease activity in patients with CIS. And it compared the oral D3, which was given every 2 weeks, to a placebo group. Then it measured disease activity in MRI results and relapses. Now, when did this study happen? Patients were enrolled from July 2013 to December of 2020. The final follow-up was on January 18th of 2023, and the intervention lasted for 24 months. Where did this take place? It took place in 36 MS centers in France. So why the study? Well, vitamin D deficiency is a known risk factor for MS. And the researchers noted that previous studies done on the benefits of vitamin D3 with MS were conflicting at best. The study aimed to determine if high-dose vitamin D3 could effectively reduce activity in early onsets of MS. And last but not least, there was an effort to look at and see if this could be potentially a low-cost therapy for MS in some capacity, even if it's just supplementation. So in their patient population to qualify, they wanted people that had 2 or more lesions with their CIS in 2 very distinct areas of damage. What I did not see in this study is if they were confining it only to the brain or to the brain and the spine, because as you know from my previous episodes, a lot of my damage is in my spine, and it's difficult to detect the degree of damage done in the spine because of where it's at and because of the size of it, at least in my case. So were they looking at just brain lesions or just spinal lesions? I don't know. If you find this study in its entirety somewhere, comment below and let us know, because I couldn't find that information. Another qualifying factor was our favorite lumbar puncture to see if there were specific protein bands in the cerebrospinal fluid. Man, it gets harder every day to say this stuff. Okay, so let's look at total patient population. Well, there were 360 participants recruited, only 303 finished, but get this is really interesting. So of those that were put in the study, 94 of them, or 60.3%, received the vitamin D every 2 weeks, and then 109 of them, or 74.1, received the placebo. Now let's fast forward and see what the results were. In the final results, 60 out of 100 people, that 60%, experienced some disease activity like a relapse or new brain lesions during the study. Now remember, those are the people in the vitamin D group. The people that were in the placebo group, which is the fake pill, about 74 out of every 100 people experienced disease activity. So fewer people in the vitamin D group had disease activity compared to the placebo group. Also, what's interesting is how things happened in the overall length of time. In the vitamin D group, it took about 432 days, or about 14 months, for half the people to have disease activity. And if we're talking about the people in the placebo group, it took 224 days, about 7.5 months versus 14 months. This means the vitamin D group took nearly twice as long to actually experience any disease activity. That's phenomenal. I mean, how cool is that? Now, of course, again, this is just clinically isolated syndrome, and it's a very small study group. But it shows that there is some merit to studying the effects of vitamin D3 on MS, especially with early onsets of MS. And what I found really interesting about this study is it's a simple demonstration of how daily choices that we make can really affect the outcome of our MS. I mean, if I can wake up and just take a couple of supplements and I know in the long term that's really going to benefit me, that's pretty easy. And this is awesome. And this is why this research is so important. Thank you for watching. Please comment below if you are experiencing better results with your D3, or maybe what you're doing. Do you have a regimen that seems to be working for you? MS is different in every single person. And I know certain things that people do for themselves. I know a friend that, for example, likes to take hot saunas because it relaxes her and it gets rid of her spasms and her cramps. I can't even fathom doing that. If I went into a sauna or a hot tub for more than 10 minutes, I would be done for the next 3 days. The fatigue and the inflammation would just explode in me. So to see that work for her is great. Also, if she goes in really cold weather, she gets horrible cramps. I do extremely well in really cold weather. So you never know what works. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm going to keep you informed. My name is Cliff. This is Life with MS. And you guys rock. I'm out.